On the road to riches speeding, I just hope I'm not lost. Lost some homies, run away for them, I gotta push on. If you ain't here to work, bustin', you can get lost. Thought my heart was freezing, gotta let it defrost. On the road to riches speeding, I just hope I'm not lost. Lost some homies, run away for them, I gotta push on. If you ain't here to work, bustin', you can get lost.
Hello and welcome to the 10th episode of the Minnesota Mikes podcast. I'm your host, Mike Thornton. Thank you all so much for joining me on this special episode, which is episode number 10. The music is my nephew, Bay Bandit. Go ahead and give him a follow on Instagram at BayBandit_. Go ahead and check him out on YouTube or on SoundCloud at Bay Bandit. Me, I'm your host, Mike Thornton. Please give me a follow. I can be found on Twitter and TikTok at Minnesota Mikes. I can be found on Instagram at Minnesota Mikes Podcast. We're on YouTube. You may be watching on YouTube. And Facebook as well. I'm just Michael Thornton there. So that's just my personal page. Feel free to add me. I've got no secrets. And I also upload content for the Minnesota Mikes podcast there as well. We've had some really cool interviewees on this show. Some very good athletes for the Golden Gophers and now for St. Thomas. And so this week, this athlete is very relevant because he is a star running back on a team that almost hesitant to use the word stars, right? St. Thomas is just all about culture. They're all about discipline, not a ton of mental errors. They're about we, not I. But Hope Adebayo is a star, though. I think even coach would admit that. He's very good. Great stats. We'll get into talking about his background a little bit more in the interview. But he's extremely relevant because they're coming off of their biggest win in the Division I era against Davidson, the preseason favorites to win the Pioneer Conference. So big win. They've got a big game coming up this weekend versus Drake. Drake is struggling. I believe they're 0-6 if I'm not mistaken. But regardless, those are when you're usually coming off those big wins, that's when you can see a team slip up. So I'm sure the coach has got them all focused and in tune and prepared to execute and hopefully get the victory this weekend over Drake. So just a lot of cool things in store. After the interview, we'll talk a little bit of Minnesota sports. This is mostly football today, so we'll talk the Vikings, St. Thomas's upcoming game, of course, versus Drake. We'll also talk the Golden Gophers. They've got a big game, Big Ten West matchup in Champaign, Illinois versus the Fighting Illini this weekend. We'll talk a little bit of Timberwolves and Wild, too, as the Timberwolves have been rolling in their preseason, and the Minnesota Wild have their home opener and season opener today. But we'll get into that a little bit later. Y'all are in for a real treat. This next guest is just high character, great person. I really enjoy getting to know this young man. And so with all that being said, let's get into it, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, my next guest is a young star running back for the University of St. Thomas and quickly becoming one of the better running backs in the country. If you don't know by now, the Tommies are on fire. They're 2-0 in the conference, having just knocked off the preseason favorite Davidson Wildcats, and 4-1 overall, with their only loss being against Southern Utah, a scholarship-level Division I team. Last season, Hope was named the Pioneer Conference Offensive Freshman Player of the Year, and he was second in yards rush, 5.9 yards.
I mean, first of all, Hope was definitely playing some old Madden clips, just completely jumps right over the DB. I believe that was the number.
Third in touchdowns and fourth in rushing yards, 643 as a freshman. Homegrown kid from Inver Grove Heights, where he was a 3-time varsity letter winner at Simley High School, named MVP, team MVP, all conference honors, and also district defensive MVP. Mind you, he's a running back at college level. And so, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to number 4 for the University of St. Thomas football team, Hope Adebayo. Hope, how are you doing today?
Pretty good. How about you?
Hey, I'm doing good. I didn't just have to practice yet. I mean, I'm sure you got some studies to do, so I truly appreciate you. Also, you guys got a big game, homecoming, coming up on Saturday. So truly.
Yes, sir.
My man, thank you so much for showing some love to the Minnesota Mikes podcast. All right, so let's get started. Last year, you had an incredible season. You earned Freshman of the Year in the Pioneer League, offensive player, I should say. How did you feel about last season individually and team-wise as far as your season and accomplishments?
I think it went for our first year. Like, we didn't really have data points on teams. So every week it was something different. We had to learn. We didn't really know how the teams were going to play. So it was like stressful, but like by the end of the season, we got stuff rolling, and it was nice because I got the opportunity to start about halfway through the year. So I'd say I really enjoyed last year. Last year was a big learning curve for us. So
It's funny because if you looked at the record, you wouldn't think learning curve. You guys are really good. So
yeah, we did really well.
Man, good for you. It looks like you're starting off hot too. And now that leads me to my next question. How do you feel about this year's team and your chances of finishing the season strong in the Pioneer League?
This year it's starting off really hot, but like our coach is not going to allow us to let off the gas. So we'll just see how the year goes. But I'm happy that we start out really hot, and it's not just one position that's doing really well. Like our wide receivers are like on the offensive side, receivers are playing well. O-lineman is playing at a high level. QB's playing at a high level. Running backs are playing at a high level. So it's all collectively. We're just playing really well. So
that's fantastic. We're going to get into the team a little bit later in this interview. For the next part of the interview, we're going to talk about you a little bit more. Next question for you. You were a standout at Simley High School in Grove Heights. Tell me about your recruitment. If I'm not mistaken, St. Thomas was in the MIAC when you were recruited to play. Yeah, let's hear it. Let's hear about your recruitment, your senior year even, but more specifically, why you chose the University of St. Thomas.
I would say my recruitment was very, it really wasn't a recruitment, to say the least. It was either between St. Thomas or St. John's. And that's, like, for a lot of kids around in Minnesota, like, those are, like, the two prime schools that you would go to if you're in the Twin Cities. So I had the decision made and just talking with the coach and everything. And at first, I was even thinking about going to St. John's. Ooh. But coach just didn't let that happen. And I'm so grateful for that. So, yeah.
Wow. And who would have thought that, you would end up being a Division I player and a standout knowing Coach Caruso. Oddly enough, my next question is about Coach. Coach Caruso has an extremely impressive record at the University of St. Thomas. Tell me about your relationship with Coach and how he connects with you and your teammates.
Oh, it's amazing. Like, obviously, he's a coach and there's boundaries and whatnot. But I remember, like, my recruiting visit with my parents, like, we were in his office and, like, he just showed my parents so much love. Like, I don't even think we talked about football. Like, it was just more about, like, relationships and whatnot, and just, like, asking my parents, like, all these questions that, like, people on the regular just won't ask. So he's a huge relationship type of guy, and, like, our relationship is, like, super amazing, especially, like, after last year's season. So I'm grateful.
That's so cool, man, honestly. And I now, audience, and just to break away from the interview a little bit, we talked before these interviews, me and the athletes, and me and Hope talked a little. I always ask if these questions are okay. And I really think it's a cool thing that Hope is willing to talk about, Coach. When I played college ball, not everybody loves the coach, and that's the coach is the coach, right? Not everybody loves their boss. And so the fact that you have those nice things to say, and Coach says that you guys playing so well, it sounds like he's a real leader of men. So that's awesome to hear.
Yes, sir.
Now, let's hear about the team. I have a few questions for you, but before we get into that, I do want to shout out at least a few of your teammates. Now, St. Thomas has 3 really good running backs. Sean Shipman, of course. Yes. Okay. And I saw him. I was at the game last week. Sean is, you're absolutely right. Hope Adebayo, of course. And freshman, Gabe Abel.
Jersey.
Man, you guys are okay. Okay. So 795 yards between the 3 of you, and the season's still young. Now, questions I have for you, just more so lighthearted. I want to get to know you. I want the audience to get to know you more. Who are some of your best friends on the team? What do you guys like to do when you're not studying or not playing football?
Honestly, I'd say some of my best friends would be mainly more defensive guys. That's so weird to even say, like, out loud, but, like, my best friend would be, like, Bunce, like John Bunce and David Ayeni and, like, IBK and, like, Colin Zinn. So it's, like, mainly a lot of defensive guys, but the guys that, like, I hang out with on the offensive side, it would be, like, Sean Shipman and Gabe Abel. Like, those are the guys, like, I'm with a lot of my time, yeah. And the things, like, we like to do, like, most of, like, my main friends, like, we don't try to do too much. We try to stay outside of doing too much a lot of times. So it's either we're playing Madden or, like, we're eating out or whatnot. Nothing too crazy, but we try to keep things pretty cool. So, yeah.
That sounds like a lot of things I did with my teammates, and that's pretty cool. and okay, so defensive guys, and of course you're tight with the running back room. This is a little off topic, but you talked about Madden. Of all those guys, who would you say is the best Madden player?
Me. It's got to be me. Okay. Like, it's got to be me. But now if you talk about 2K, then I got to give Bunce that. We're talking about
Okay.
Madden. It's got to be me.
Okay. So defensive player John Bunn's got the 2K down, but Madden sounds like Bio is the Madden player. All right. So we're going to get into some fun questions here about the team. Let's hear about the St. Thomas Tommies football team. Who would you say is the best dresser on the Tommies football team?
You got this freshman. His name is Rod Finley. I don't think I've ever seen him without some designer clothes on. So he always got the Lulu on, always got just something like elegant on. So I say he's just the guy when it comes to best dressed.
Okay, Rod Finley. You heard it here. Best dresser on the Tommies football team. Next question. Who would you say is the funniest player on the team? Who's got the best jokes? Gets people cracking up all the time.
Offensive lineman Langston. Oh man, like he's such a quiet dude. If you saw him walking around, you think he's so quiet and ducked out. But like when you actually get a conversation with him, oh man. But you got to ask him to speak up all the time because he's always whispering and whatnot. But he's hands down one of the like low key funniest guys on the team. So
And Langston, what's his name now?
I think Langston Binns.
Okay, very nice.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
shout out to Langston there for the funniest player on the Tommies football team. Now, best social media game on the St. Thomas football team.
I gotta give it to the wide receivers. Wide receivers, those are just the pretty boys. So Andrew McElroy, he's just that guy with the socials. He's got it all.
Usually the way it goes, I swear, is the wide receivers and the basketball team. So, very nice. All right, now, very lighthearted. So if your teammates are here, and hopefully this doesn't cause a rift before homecoming, it's all fun and games. Minnesota Mike's podcast. Who would you say is the worst dresser on the St. Thomas football team?
I would say, honestly, I'd say it's me. Me, to be honest. Like I have some fits that I can put on, but sometimes I just can't get it right. Even like on the field, like I'm just a simple dude, even on the field. Like I try not to do too much. Like I might do turf tape here and there, but like usually just taping my feet. Sometimes not even wearing gloves. But it's just I'd say I'm probably with the amount of clothes I have, I definitely need to work on putting it all together more. So
Okay, that's fair. You got some other things going on in your life. And you know what? After doing a lot of research on your Hope, it doesn't surprise me that you would be humble there. Good humility. I like it. All right. So hopefully you don't say you on this, but that's fair. The next question, all fun and games again. Who would you say has the worst social media game on the St. Thomas football team?
oh, worst social media. Man, oh man. I'd have to give that to John Butts. I have to give it to John Butts. He just don't be on no socials. He, like I said, he's just a duck that dude. He just likes to be in the moment, and so I say he probably has the worst social media game on the team.
Okay, fair enough. What position does John play?
He plays linebacker, outside linebacker. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. All fun and games, John. Nothing but love for you here. And we support all the time. So it's good to get to know your teammates even more. So let's hear about your family now. Your parents raised some good kids, and we'll get into the siblings a little bit later. But your parents, now obviously you're a great athlete. We'll talk about your brother, who's also a good athlete. Were your parents athletes themselves? And yeah, let's hear about them more.
Yeah, my mom ran track. She ran track back at home, which is obviously Nigeria. So did my dad. My dad played soccer a lot, and he also played baseball too. And he mainly reffed soccer a lot. So yeah, parents are coming from athletic background.
Very interesting. I knew that your parents were from Nigeria. Baseball is shocking to me. I didn't know that.
Baseball is shocking.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Very nice. And then your mom was track. It surprised me. Her boy can run like the wind there. So good to know. Now, got to show some love to your siblings. All right. No questions for them, but we will show some love and shout them out. Faith and Love are also very impressive. As Faith, your sister, she's a nursing student at Mankato. And Love, your little brother, is a standout football player at St. Thomas Academy.
Yes, sir.
It's like he's getting recruited to play college ball too. So who knows? Might be looking at a future Tommy there.
Maybe.
We'll see. We'll let the man make his decision, but I'm looking forward to tracking him. And yeah, well done, Mom and Dad, Mr. and Mrs. Adebayo, for raising some great young people and giving them 5-star names too. Hope, Love, Faith. Wow, that is beautiful. Great job there, parents. Okay. Now, let's hear. I'd like to ask you next. I know you're only, but I'm sure you've given plenty of thought about your future. So tell me about your plans after the University of St. Thomas.
Oh, I've been super grateful to even get a lot of internships these last couple of summers. So I'm a computer science major. So I've been working at this company called RSM. That's probably where I'm going to end up after college. But if God willing, like if football continues, I definitely love that. But I know there's going to become a point where football has to end, and that's my career has to start. So probably just a computer science gig, and maybe one day own my own business. So yeah.
Very cool, man. It wouldn't surprise me if you do. Already in internships too, man. So you really have to give them some thought to it. Well done there. And yeah, as well as your career's going so far, you never know what the future holds with football. So
For real.
yeah, definitely. I'll be looking forward to seeing you continue throughout your career. Now, last week you had a Sports Center top play. Man, it was awesome. When in a Sports Center like play, it should have been on Sports Center if it wasn't.
Should have been.
You literally leaped over a dude and proceeded to get several yards on that carry. So, with that being said, and I'm sure we will definitely show that highlight on the show. But what's one of your more memorable highlights of your career?
Oof. I would say last year, my first ever start. So like whole like last year going through, you know, with football, there's mentals and oh, like I'm a second string, I'm a third string, this and that. And I finally got my opportunity to start the week due to injury. And first play of the first game, took it like 70, 80 yards. Ended that game with 4 touchdowns on my first ever start. So like it's been gold from there on. I would say that's had to be like my most memorable time. Cause like during that time, I also like just stopped caring so much about my stats and like how I'm going to perform. And that's when I played the best. I literally just gave it all to God. So I'm just grateful for that.
Yeah, that is so cool. That is so cool. First game as a freshman, 4 touchdowns, 70 yards, first play. That is awesome, man. Well done there. And I love the selflessness too. Keep that same energy and attitude, man. That is awesome. Okay, so your team, yeah, and honestly, your team has a lot of selflessness on it. I'm new to the St. Thomas football. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
not the St. Thomas
A
pundit.
lot of
here.
people are.
And it's going to be a lot of people jumping on that bandwagon as you guys are starting off hot. So your team has very few mental errors, I noticed, and appear to have excellent culture. Tell me and my audience who may be less familiar with Tommy football more about the culture and just, yeah, what Tommy football is all about.
Honestly, it's not even about it's about us, but like the theme that the coaches preach all the time and the theme that's like instilled in the program is like we're standing on the shoulders of the giants before us. So like the guys who work their butts off to get us out of D3, get us literally kicked out of D3 to be able to play D1 and never actually be able to step on the field while we're D1. Like those are the guys like that like coaches look so highly at. That's why we have what is it 32, 33 now home game winning streak, because it's
Home
like
game win
all
streak.
those all those guys come out and like coaches make sure that like we understand like who we're playing for and like why we're playing and who has came before us and the sacrifice that they've made for us to be in the situation we're in, and also understanding that we're also leaving a legacy that the future Tommy will also be standing on. So I feel like that's what keeps us going, and they hold us to a high standard. So
That's a real culture that the Tommies have there. So I'm a fan, and I'm a new fan, but I'm a real fan though. So win, lose, or draw, I'll be supporting y'all. But yeah, hopefully we see you continue to win. And yeah, honestly, yeah, that's great, man. Thanks so much for sharing more about what it means to be a Tommy football player. Let's get into a little bit more. We're gonna end this interview on some light-hearted topics. So, favorite music genre. What would you say is your favorite music genre?
So I stopped listening to rap about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and I picked up on Christian rap. So I say Christian rap has been something that I've been listening to a lot lately. Yeah.
Okay, and I did a little research, and I figured you could maybe drop a few bars for us now.
No.
I'm messing around. No, I'll put you on the spot
Oh,
like that. No, that's awesome. Okay, so very cool. Now, who would you say is your favorite artist?
Caleb Gordon. I'm very picky with the music I listen to. So he's a guy who doesn't really swear in his music. Is always something about God, and I'll say my whole playlist is Caleb Gordon. All Caleb Gordon.
Okay.
So yeah.
I have to check. I gotta say, I'm new. That's new to me, so I'm gonna check out Caleb Gordon. Okay, very nice. Now, my That's my last question is about food. I'm a food guy. I'm a fat boy.
Me too.
I'm a former O-lineman, so unfortunately, I'm not burning calories like the O-line is, but I'm definitely eating them. Question for you. Let's see here. Your favorite food spots around campus. You're from Minnesota. There's favorite food spots around Emerald Grove Heights or even outstate Minnesota. You name it. Also, if you like to cook, I'd love to hear about it. I know your Nigerian roots. I'd love to hear about some African food, maybe even food that your family likes to make for you.
Yeah, I would say I wouldn't even call this like a generic spot because it's Cane's. So Cane's is my go-to. Like, I go to Cane's all the time, even a little too much. But I'd say that's like my go-to spot whenever I'm back home or even like in the city. So I really like that. And like I'm Nigerian, so Nigerian jollof is just so good for me. And I feel like that's the reason it's called Nigerian jollof.
Okay.
It's like rice. It's like fried rice and whatnot. And I think that's the byproduct to why like I am the way I am, because honestly that's all my mom cooked growing up. So I ate a lot of rice. So I got really used to eating a lot of rice growing up. So yeah, so that's like Cane's, jollof rice, and definitely wings, especially dry rub. Dry rub wings. I'm a big ranch guy. Yep. Ranch goes a long way. Oh, I could drench anything in ranch. So
you're speaking my language there. Now, Raising Cane's. Oh boy, I got a good relationship with Raising Cane's. And
a little too good.
Too good is indeed. Yeah, I don't need to be eating the fried foods, but my butt had some dry rub wings yesterday that were delicious with the ranch. You got to have that. Now, Nigerian food. Okay, so jollof is something I got to try. I'm sure you got some great home cooked foods. But is there any restaurants in the Twin Cities that sell good African food? Any recommendations from you there?
Honestly, I don't really like, because like my mom cooks African food a lot. I don't really go out for African food, but like I would say around like St. Paul area, like the Nook got some really good burgers and some really good wings. So that's like my go-to spot whenever like hanging out with friends or whatnot. So the Nook it's a legendary spot to go if you're visiting St. Thomas or even St. Paul in general.
I've heard of the Nook. Now, I'm more of South Metro. I grew up in Burnsville.
Okay.
St. Paul, I'm not as familiar, but and obviously St. Thomas football. Last week was my first game, and I had a really good burger there. You guys had peppers and fries.
Yeah, I've never even heard of them. Man, that's my first time ever hearing about them.
I've heard of them. I've never eaten there, but I did last week. It was really good. Yes, and some plans fell through for me this weekend, so I ended up purchasing a ticket to the homecoming game for the University of
St. Thomas.
I can't wait.
Let's go.
You guys are taking on Drake. I went to college in Iowa, so I'm familiar with that school. And hopefully you guys give them heck, man. Hey, Hope Adebayo, homegrown talent, excellent running back. But we can't butter you up anymore because you got a big game this Saturday.
Yes, sir.
I meant what I said. A fan is a fan, and we'll cheer you on, win, lose, or draw, because you're going to have some ups and downs, I'm sure. But keep giving them heck, man. Absolutely.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really grateful for this opportunity.
Hey, I look forward to hopefully having you on after the season. Best of luck this year, and man, you have a great night.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Folks, truly, I really enjoy getting to know Hope. I've enjoyed getting to know all these young athletes. I feel like they've been keeping me young, kind of. Getting to know these guys are the future. So it's really cool to get to know these guys. But Hope, high character, high intelligence, great athlete, great person. He even has his own little podcast that I've listened to, and it was really cool. It was raw. I think the stereotypes on St. Thomas, nerdy, right? They're very goody-good people, high morals, Christian, all that. That's all true. And Hope definitely is high character and all that. But honestly, if you listen to this show, it was raw, it was real. And they talked, had me rolling. It was really cool. I think he does that show with his cousin, and he had his sister on one of the episodes. So it was nice getting to know him, who he truly is. And after the season, when they're not preparing for their homecoming game in a few days, I hope to have him back on this show and get to know him even more. So truly, but really enjoyed getting to know him. We'll keep this episode short and sweet, but I really want to go over the highlights from the weekend and the week in Minnesota sports, specifically football. This will be a football episode. The Minnesota Vikings defeated the Chicago Bears 29-22. They improved to 4-1. And
Fields underneath. He finds the former Viking Amir Smith-Marset, and it's stripped away by Dantzler. He takes it down into Bears territory. A huge turnover with a minute to go.
And so now they have defeated every team in the NFC North. So the North is under their control. They're getting ready to travel to Miami, where they'll take on the Dolphins this Sunday. So hopefully they can keep the wins rolling. The St. Thomas Tommies, obviously they had a huge win, their biggest win in the Division I era, as they beat the preseason conference favorite Davidson Wildcats 27-16. That was awesome execution. I was there. If you haven't been, that is a good one to bring the family to. It's cool. I like how it's not super crowded. That's the one thing about going to Vikings games and Gopher football games. It's just big crowds, long lines, super overpriced food, all that stuff, because you get what you're paying for. You're getting high-level competition at those games. You want to see Justin Jefferson, Kirk Cousins, or Mo Ibrahim, you're going to have to pay for it. So I get that. But with St. Thomas, you're getting high-level competition. You could hear the coaches, and yet the stadium's still full, so you're getting a cool atmosphere. The food was good. I love their vendors. They had peppers and fries. As I mentioned, I had a good burger there. I think they had Nashville chicken coop, just all sorts of good food, just really cool environment. So I'd encourage you. Their games are at 1 o'clock. I'm going this weekend. If you're a Gopher fan, it might be tough because you're going to be watching the Gopher game. But I will say, maybe you could be able to catch most of the Gopher game or a good chunk of it and then watch on your phone. That's definitely what I plan on doing because I'm a huge Gopher fan, if you don't know. And that leads me into the next thing, which is Gopher football. They were idle last week. And so they fell in the standings. They're in the middle of the pack there. It's a weird year. Who is it? At the bottom of the Big Ten West standings is Iowa and Wisconsin. So who would have thought? But yeah, the Gophers, they're still 4-1, and they'll take on Illinois. The Fighting Illini are red hot. And so they look like arguably the best team in the Big Ten West this year. So we'll see what happens this weekend, but I'll be cheering on the Gophers, and hopefully they get the big W. And obviously the Tommies take on Drake, and we know about that. I don't know if you call it a trap game, but it's just after those big wins, those are the games that you got to watch out for. You take on Drake. Drake is 0-6, I believe. They're not very good, I know, this year, but yeah, watch it though. Off all that adrenaline from the big win last week, and you're starting to get talked about even more, as you should, and you're starting to get casual fans, I guess you could say like myself, hop on the bandwagon.
6-hour from the gun with the 7-0 lead. Here comes the blitz, quick release, Wildermuth into the end zone, touchdown. Tommies beat the blitz, and the Tommies take a 13.
Those are the games that you can let slip. So hopefully I'm sure Coach Caruso will have those boys fired up and locked in, and hopefully they can execute and get it done, get the victory. The Timberwolves, they improved last night to 4-0 in the preseason as they defeated the LA Lakers 118-113. I was impressed. I watched the game. The Lakers played their starters. The Wolves, we didn't play Karl Anthony Towns or Rudy Gobert didn't play, and we still played. And also, Anthony Edwards had an off game. So those guys like Naz Reid and former Iowa Hawkeye Luka Garza stepping up. Luka had a huge game.
That pick after 1 year with the Spartans. Here's Garza for 3. That's good.
And so really excited for the Wolves season. I'm crazy, right? I'm an MBA student. I work full time and I go to all these games. I don't know what the heck's wrong with me, but I'll be going to the Timberwolves preseason game tomorrow at the Target Center. I believe that's their last preseason game. The season starts next week. Can't wait. And the Minnesota Wild, they have their season opener and their home opener tonight versus the 1-0 New York Rangers at the XL Energy Center here in St. Paul. As New York has already played a game. They played in the NHL season opener where they defeated the Tampa Bay Lightning in New York 3-1 on Tuesday. So go Wild, go Wolves, go Vikes, go Gophers, go Tommies, roll Toms, cheer on all these teams. Thank you so much for listening to the show. A call for action. Please, pretty please support this show if you can. Download go ahead and subscribe on the YouTube if you can. Download the podcast. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify, all the streaming platforms, however you listen to your podcast. Follow me on Twitter and TikTok at Minnesota Mikes. Follow me on Instagram at Minnesota Mikes Podcast. On YouTube, I'm starting to upload the content that I do daily on the social media. So go ahead and check it out. And that's just going to keep getting better. But truly, thank you all so much. And again, if you're a Tommy fan, Gopher fan, even a Badger fan, hey, it's okay. No matter who you cheer for, it doesn't matter who you cheer for. Doesn't matter because we're all on the same team here at the Minnesota Mikes Podcast. Thanks, folks. Hope you have a great day, great weekend. Peace.
Steady heading, steady heading. Don't nobody see the vision till after you made it. On the road, rich is speeding. I just hope I'm not lost. Lost some homies along the way, for them I gotta push on. If you ain't here to work, Busky, you can get lost. Thought my heart was freezing, gotta let it defrost. On the road to riches speeding, I just hope I'm not lost. Lost some homies along the way, for them I gotta push on. If you ain't here to work, Busky, you can get lost. Thought my heart was freezing, gotta let it defrost. Young, black and wild, and I know they hate it. Since I was a youngin', I've been counting payments. Open up the legs, it's got fans waiting. Let the hitters hit, that's my motivation. On the road to riches speeding, I just hope I'm not lost.